Good day, ma'am. Good day, everyone. I am Annalena Sadol, and we will tackle all about capital budgeting. But before that, let us first know what this lesson's objective. First, we have the definition of capital, budgeting and capital budgeting, importance of capital budgeting process, methods of capital budgeting, factors affecting capital budgeting decisions, challenges in capital budgeting, and the techniques to handle risk in capital budgeting. Capital. A company's available funds such as cash, retained earnings, or ang money na nabilin from previous years, or owner's capital. In a broader sense, capital can include all of a company's assets that have monetary value such as equipment, real estate, and inventory. So ang capital, mo na siya ang kwarta or resources na gigamit sa company nga mapadagan ang business. This refers to financial resources, assets, or funds used to invest, finance, or support business operations, growth, and expansion. Next, we have budgeting. It is the process of creating a financial plan that estimates income and expenses over a specific period. It helps individuals, businesses, and governments to manage finances effectively, set priorities, and allocate resources, achieve short-term and long-term financial goals. A budget serves as a tool for monitoring and controlling financial performance. So budgeting, this is a systematic process. So budgeting is a systematic process of allocating financial resources to achieve specific goals, objectives, or activities over a defined period. So for example, as a student, naratay limited money na need a budget for a week, for example. So we must spend our money wisely para napay mabili ng kwarta when the day ends. We must spend our money sa mga things na atong need kaysa sa atong mga wants. Para dili ma-overspend. Kaya for example, na emergency, napatay mahatag nga kwarta. Capital budgeting. Capital budgeting is the process of planning and managing a company's long-term investments. It involves evaluating the potential of major projects or investments, such as new machinery, expansion, or new product development, to determine if they generate positive returns. So, capital budgeting is a long-term nature. The investment decisions affect the business for several years in the future and has its strategic importance, as these decisions have a major impact on a company's growth, sustainability, and financial health. So, ang capital budgeting is a crucial aspect of financial management nga involve of planning and evaluating long-term investments. So, it is essential to determine whether a project can generate sufficient returns to justify the investment. So, ang goal sa capital budgeting is to maximize the profitability of the business and enhance shareholder value. And it's the process of deciding whether i-accept or reject ang project para sa benefits sa business na makapalahutay pa in the long run. Now, let's proceed to the importance of capital budgeting. First, it optimizes resource allocation. So, capital budgeting ensures effective use of limited resources. It ensures optimal use of workforce, capital, and labor hours. It ensures that the company uses its money wisely on the most important projects. So why does it matters? So since ang business kay naraman joy unlimited money, so dapat ilang fokusan og use ilang money sa mga projects nga maka-benefit sa ilaha og makapag-growth sa ilahang business. So for example, garan ka og bakery. You have 10,000 or let's say 100,000 pesos. Should you buy a delivery van or renovate your store? So, ari na ma-involve ang capital budgeting as it helps you figure out which one will bring you in more profit or benefit in the long run. Next, promote strategic decision making. It evaluates projects based on profitability, risk, and alignment with business objectives. So, capital budgeting helps businesses make smart decisions that support their future goals. So, ang business need nga maghimo og mga choices nga makapa-grow sa ilahang company in the right direction. So, just like sa example kanina, nga you run a bakery. If your goal is to attract more customers, you might want to decide to invest in a better oven to bake more cakes faster instead of spending money on decorations. So, ga-involved jud siya og decision nga makapahatag og betterment sa inyong company. Next is, it enhances financial discipline. Capital budgeting encourages careful planning, reducing unnecessary expenditures. So, this forces businesses to think carefully before spending money in order for them to avoid wasting money on things na dili makapahatag og value adto sa ilahang business. Instead nga magpalit ka og mga things nga wala rin gamit sa inyong business at jud ka mag-invest sa mga things na makapa-help nga makagain og high profit. Next, minimizes risk. It assesses potential risks and returns, mitigating financial losses. So it helps businesses avoid losing money by analyzing possible problems ahead of time. Big investments can go wrong if not planned properly. So this process reduces this chance of failure. Kaya makaibaw naman ka sa possible na outcome if kana na investment ang imong i-pursue. So if na kay risk na makita, dili na nimo i-pursue, instead adto ka sa investment nga naay positive outcome sa inyong business. It improves cash flow management. Capital budgeting helps manage cash inflows and outflows. So this ensures nga ang business dili ma-run out of money and naay enough money para sa iyang daily operations while investing some sa big investments. So, it is very important nga ang business kay dili ma-run out of money and mabalance niya ang pag-spend o pag-save sa iyahang kwarta para makapalahot ang business and dili ma-bankrupt. Kay since na-plan naman siya and na-manage na nimo ang mga resources, so mabalance na nimo ang pag-spend at pag-save sa imong kwarta. Next, it fosters growth and expansion. Capital budgeting supports long-term investments, driving business growth. So this means that it supports long-term investments that help the business grow bigger. Okay, without growth, a business might fall behind competitor. For example, a small bakery might use capital budgeting to decide whether to open a second branch or start selling cakes online para mapadayon ang imuhang business o mapa-expand pa nimo. Next, it supports competitive advantage. It enables businesses to respond to market opportunities. So this helps businesses stay ahead of competitors by investing in opportunities at the right time. Okay, since the world is evolving and so the market is changing. So the market changes fast and business need to act quickly to grab opportunities. For instance, if your competitors start offering home delivery, capital budgeting helps you decide if you should invest in your own delivery system to keep up. Lastly, it increases accountability. It provides transparency and oversight. So capital budgeting makes everyone responsible for ensuring the investment is successful. When people are accountable, they are more likely to make good decisions and monitor process. This encourages employees to take responsibility for project success. So now, let's talk about the capital budgeting process. Capital budgeting process typically involves the following steps. First is the project identification. This is the stage where potential projects or investment opportunities are identified. It could involve expansion, replacing old machinery, new product launches, or entering new markets. So from the word identification, imo i-identify ang mga potential nga mga projects or asa nimo i-invest imong money. So magplan ka na, maglist ka. So it's either nga imo ba expand imong business or imo i-replace ang mga old machinery to the new ones para for better productivity or mag-launch ka og new product to satisfy your customers. Next is the project evaluation. After identifying projects, companies evaluate their financial feasibility. This includes estimating cash flows, assessing risk, and calculating the potential returns. So, project evaluation, ari na musod ang katong mag-calculate ka kung pila imuhang mapagawas na cash. So, ari musod tong NPV or the net present value, payback period, the profitability index, and others. So, ari imuhang i-calculate kung whether ma-cover up ba sa imuhang mga cost, ma-cover up ba sa returns ang imuhang mga cost. Sa katong mga project kay imuhang gi-list sa project identification. So, next is the project selection. Based on the evaluation, projects are ranked and selected according to their potential to add value to the company. So, project selection. So, based on the sa kato imong gilis nga mga potential projects, and then sa imong gibuhat nga evaluation, makita nimo kung asa dito ang makahatag og profitability sa company. So, you will select projects para imuha implement. So the next steps is implementation. Once a project is approved, funds are allocated, and the project is initiated. This includes managing costs, timelines, and resources to ensure the project stays on track. So implementation, after selecting the potential project, so imo na siya i-implement. Ari na ka magpagawas og mga cash flows nimo. And then imo i-manage iya cost kung kanus siya kutob ihang timeline kung kanus mag-start og when ang kining expected nga deadline ana nga project. Next is monitoring and review. After the project is implemented, it's crucial to monitor its performance, comparing actual outcomes to the expected ones. This step ensures that the project is delivering the projected returns and allows for corrective actions if necessary. So, di ba kayo na-implement naman ni mo katong imuhang potential project? So, you have to monitor and review it para sa maimong ma-compare if ang kanabang actual outcomes kay dol-dol ra sa imuhang expected nga mahitabo. And if ever nga na ay mahitabo, makining maagapan siya or ma-actionan siya if necessary. Now, let's move on to the methods of capital budgeting. There are several methods used to evaluate and compare investment projects in capital budgeting. The most common methods are net present value or the NPV, internal rate of return or IRR, payback period or PB, profitability index or PI, discounted payback period or DPP, and accounting rate of return or ARR. So these are methods or tools for evaluation. These help businesses evaluate whether a project will be worth the investment by considering the expected returns, risks, and the time frame for recovering the costs. So first is the net present value. The NPV method calculates the difference between the present value of cash inflows and outflows over the life of the project, discounted at the firm's cost of capital. So NPV or the net present value shows if the project will make more money than it costs. So a positive NPV means it's a good investment. So here is the formula. NPV is equals to the summation of cash flow at time over 1 plus the discount rate or cost of capital raised to the time period minus the initial investment. So the decision rule, if the NPV is a positive value, then you should accept the project. NPV is a negative value, then reject the project. And if the NPV is exactly zero, the matter of indifference, either accept or reject the project. So here is an example. A company is considering an investment opportunity with the following details. Initial investment of 100,000 pesos. Expected cash flows for the year 1 is 30,000 pesos. Year 2, 40,000 pesos. Year 3, 50,000 pesos. And the discount rate is 10%. So the calculation is here. Then the answer will be the net present value is equals to 14,491 pesos. So it shows that the calculated net present value is a positive, so you should accept the project. Next is the internal rate of return or the IRR. IRR is the discount rate at which the NPV of an investment is zero. It represents the expected rate of return of the project. So the internal rate of return tells you the rate of return a project will give. If it's higher than the company's target, then it's a good choice. Here is the formula. NPV of an investment with zero is equals to summation of cash flow at time over 1 plus internal rate of return raised to the power of the time period minus the initial investment. So the decision rule, if is accept the project if the IRR is higher than the company's required rate of return or the cost of capital. So here is an example in computing or solving for the internal rate of return. So a company considers investing in a project requiring an initial investment of 50,000 pesos. The project is expected to generate the following cash flows over 3 years. So for the year 1 is equals to 20,000 pesos. Year 2 is equals to 25,000 pesos. And for the year 3 is 30,000 pesos. So basin mahibong mo if nganong we're using the NPV formula. Okay, to solve for the IRR, maagi jud tahan niya. So, for the equation setup, first is imuha siyang i-anak dito.
basta maggamit ka og out of the kini NPV formula, imo ha siyang mag-construct ka og another formula. So, ang initial investment is mauna na siya. So, initial investment is equals to summation of cash flows over 1 plus rate raised to the power of the time period. So, given 50,000 pesos ang initial investment, then year 1, 20,000 pesos, year 2, 25,000 pesos, and the year 3 is 30,000 pesos. So, ato siya i-assume na ang yahang rate is 10%. So, ato i-substitute lang ang 10% sa kanang ay letter R. Kaya mo muna siya ang rate. So, if gamit ang 10% na rate, it will gives us a positive NPV. So, at need niya i-increase kay para ang NPV is equals to 0, diba? Ato manipangita na dapat ang NPV is 0. So, ato na po i-assume nga 20% ang kining rate. So, if 20%, it will give us a positive NPV gihapon, but closer na siya sa 0. So, increase na po na to ang iha rate. Gamay lang, slightly. So, next is gamit ang 22% na rate. Ato na siya i-assume. So, if 22% atong gamiton, it will give us a negative NPV which is negative 273.43. So, dili na siya. I-reject na nato. Hindi na gamit ang 22%. So, ato so, ang IRR is in between 20% o 22% kay ang PBB asa 20% kay 1,388.89 which is positive. The negative ang sa 22% is negative which is negative 273.43. So, na-siya another formula to find the accurate IRR. So, an interpolation formula is IRR is equals to rate 1 plus the open parenthesis first NPV over the NPV 1 minus NPV 2 times rate 2 minus the rate 1. So, where ang rate 1 is equals to 20%, NPV 1 is equals to 1,388.89, and then rate 2 is equals to 22%. NPV number 2 is equals to negative 273.43. So, substitute lang nato ang given sa formula. IRR is equals to 20% plus 1,388.89 over 1,388.89 which is the first NPV minus negative 273.43 which is the second NPV. Atong gi-assume. Gi-assume gamit ang sa rate nga 22%. So, times 22% the rate number 2 and then minus 20% nga rate number 1. So, overall, ang ihang answer is equals to 21.67%. So, the IRR of the project is approximately 21.67%. So, next is the payback period. The payback period measures the time required for an investment to generate cash flows sufficient to recover the initial outlay. So, the payback period shows how long it will take to get the money you spent on the project. So, the shorter is the better. Naatay duha ka kuan sa payback period. It is uneven o even. The first formula kay payback period is equals to initial investment over the annual cash inflows. So, here is the decision rule. If the payback period is less than or equal to the target payback period, the more na imo siya i-accept. Kay shorter payback period, faster recovery of investment, then more attractive siya. So, if the payback period is greater than the target payback period, it will take us a longer payback period man, then slower yung recovery of investment, less attractive, so i-reject ang project. Here is an example. A company invests 120,000 pesos in a project that generates a constant annual cash inflow of 30,000 pesos. So, calculate the payback period. Given initial investment cost to 120,000 pesos and the annual cash inflow is equal to 30,000 pesos. So, here muna siya ang atong gitawag nga even nga payback period. Kay, wala man, dili man lahi-lahi ang ihang, wala siya given nga cash flows nga lahi-lahi. So, formula niya kay katurang payback period is equal to initial investment over annual cash inflows. So, to solve it, atara i-substitute ang given sa formula. Initial investment is equals to 120,000 pesos and the annual cash inflows is equals to 30,000 pesos, which will give us the payback period of 4 years. So next is the profitability index. Similar to the payback period, but this method accounts for the time value of money by discounting the cash flows. So profitability index compares the value of future profits to the initial investment. So here is the formula. Profitability index is equals to the present value of future cash flows or PV over initial investment. Nga, na po siya yung mga variations of formula. Ang first kay PI is equals to NPV plus initial investment over initial investment. And then for the second formula variation is equals to PV of cash inflows over the PV of cash outflows. So, if this is the decision rule, if the profitability index is greater than 1, so ang project is more attractive, so accept the project. So if ang PV is less than 1, then it is unattractive, so reject the investment or project. And then decision 3, if the PI is equals to 1, the project is neutral, so break even siya. So here is an example. A company requires investing in a project that requires an initial investment of 60,000 pesos. The project is expected to generate the following cash flows over 3 years. So first, for the year 1 is equals to 25,000 pesos, year 2, 30,000 pesos, and for the year 3 is equals to 40,000 pesos. So the company's required rate of return discount rate is 10%. Calculate the profitability index or PI and decide whether the project should be accepted. So to solve for the problem, the formula is PV or the present value is equals to cash flow of time over 1 plus rate raised to the power of the time period or the year. So where the T is equals to the year, R is equals to the discount rate or the 10% na given. So to solve for the year 1, substitute lang na to siya. Given 25,000 diba sa year 1. So the PV for the year 1 is equals to 22,727.27. Solve na po ta for the year 2. The present value for the year 2 is equals to 34,793.39, and for the year 3 is equals to 30,064.58. So total of the present value of future cash flows is equals to 77,585.24. So to calculate for the profitability index, so ato namang na-solve ang ihang PV of future cash flows. So nanatay ika-substitute for the sa formula. So profitability index is equals to 77,585.24 over 60,000 nga initial investment, which will give us 1.293. So ang decision, since the profitability index is greater than 1, so ang project is more profitable, then you should accept the project. So the Kahneman meaning is the profitability index is 1.29, meaning the project generates 1.29 value for every 1 peso of investment or invested. So next is the discounted payback period. It is similar to the payback period, but this method accounts for the time value of money by discounting the cash flows. So, formula niya is the discounted payback period is equals to the T plus remaining investment over discounted cash flow in year T plus 1, where T represents the last year where the cumulative discounted cash flows are still less than the initial investment. Then the remaining investment is the amount of initial investment left to recover after year T. And then discounted cash flow, or the DCF is represented the cash flow for a specific year discounted to its present value. So the present value of cash flow is equals to PV. Present value of cash flow, or the PV, is equals to cash flow of time over 1 plus rate raised to the power of the time period or the year. So decision rule: if the discounted payback period is less than or greater than the target period, so shorter payback period siya, faster recovery of investment, more attractive, so we should accept the investment. Then if the discounted payback period is greater than the target payback period, so longer payback period siya, then slower recovery of investment, less attractive, so we should reject the project or investment. So here is an example on how to calculate for the discounted payback period. A company invests 100,000 pesos in a project expected to generate the following annual cash inflows for 3 years. For year 1 is equals to 40,000 pesos, year 2 50,000 pesos, and for the year 3 is equals to 60,000 pesos. The required discount period is 10%. So we should calculate the discount period, payback period. So given niya is the initial investment is 100,000 pesos, discount rate 10% or 0.10. Cash flows, year 1 is equals to 40,000 pesos, year 2 50,000 pesos, and for the year 3 is equals to 60,000 pesos. So to calculate for the discounted cash flows, ato siya isolve ang iyang present value of cash flow for each year. So for the year 1, you can generate 36,363.64 present value of cash flows, and then for the year 2, 41,322.31 pesos, and for the year 3, present value of cash flows is equals to 45,090.09. So compute cumulative discounted cash flows. Ang ihang cumulative for the previous katong 36,363.64, and end of year 2 cumulative present value is equals to 36,363.64 plus ang ihang katong year 2 nga present value, which is 41,322.31, is equals to 685.95 na cumulative present value. Then sa end of year 3, ang ihang cumulative present value is ato i-add ang end of the cumulative present value sa year 2 plus the present value for the year 3, which will give us a cumulative present value of 122,776.04. So to determine the payback period, the investment of 100,000 pesos is fully recovered between year 2 and year 3. So remaining amount niya is ang initial investment minus the initial investment minus ang katong cumulative payback period sa year 2, which will give us the remaining amount of 22,314.05. So to solve for the fraction of year 3, remaining amount divided by discounted cash flow in year 3, which is ang remaining amount is 22,314.05 over ang discounted cash flow in year 3, 45,090.09. So the answer will be 0.49 years. So ang iya previous years man kay 2 years, diba? So ang formula sa discounted payback period is equals to the 2 years plus ang katong fraction of year 3 nga 0.49 years, which will give us 2.49 years in total. So the discounted payback period, or the DPP, is 2.49 years, or approximately 2 years and 6 months. So last is the accounting rate of return, or the ARR. So it is a measures of the project's expected return on investment based on accounting profits. So to solve for the ARR, so here's the formula. ARR is equals to average annual profits over initial investment times 100. So where the average annual profits represents the total profits or the project life, or the number of years. Then the initial investment, the initial outlay, or the amount invested at the beginning. So decision rule: if the accounting rate of return is greater than the target rate, so accept on project. Then if the ARR is less than the target rate, so reject the project. And if the ARR is equal to the target rate, so neutral siya. So here is an example to solve for the ARR. A company invests 200,000 pesos in a project that is expected to generate the following annual net income over 4 years. So year 1, 50,000 pesos. Year 2, 60,000 pesos. Year 3, 70,000 pesos. And for the year 4 is equals to 80,000 pesos. So formula: ARR is equals to average annual profits over initial investment times 100. So ito lang siya i-substitute. Solution niya is total net income is equals to 50,000 na year 1 plus 60,000. Year 2, year 3, 70,000 pesos. And for the year 4, 80,000 pesos. So yung total net income is equals to 260,000 pesos. So ato man gipangita kay ang average annual accounting profit, no? So ang ihang total net income ato sa pangitawag average. The average annual accounting profit is equal to 260,000 nga total net income over 4 because upat man siya ka year, which will give us 65,000 pesos. So for the ARR, average annual profits, which is 65,000 over the initial investment, which is 200,000 pesos, times 100 will give us an answer of 32.5%. So overall, ang kaniyang mga methods of capital budgeting, or the tools for evaluation, help businesses to check if the project will make money back using the tools like net present value and the IRR. Makita man dito if the project is worth the investment man good. And then it will help manage risks, which ma-identify ang potential risks and ensure the project is a safe bet. And through these mga tools, it will help us choose the best projects. Kaya with limited resources, these tools help decide which projects are most profitable, and then it will help businesses use money wisely. Kaya with these tools, they will make sure the business spends money on projects that will give the best returns. And then, it will make better decisions. Kaya these tools provide clear data-based information to help choose the right projects. Kaya makita man yun sa ining ang ihang mga na-generate ng mga answers or katong kanina. So in short, ang kaning methods of capital budgeting help businesses spend wisely, reduce risks, and pick projects that will bring the most value for the benefit of the company.
Let's move on to the factors affecting capital budget decisions. So there are several factors that companies must consider when making capital budgeting decisions. First, cash flow projections. Accurate forecasting of cash inflows and outflows is crucial. Overestimating cash inflows or underestimating costs can lead to poor investment decisions. So, importante kayo ang accurate projection sa future cash inflows o outflows. Diha nila ma-evaluate if ang profitability anang investment. So, if ang cash inflows mo exceed siya sa investment cost, diha nila ma-consider if ang kanang project is viable. So, second, risk and uncertainty. Uncertainty about future conditions such as changes in market demand, interest rates, or political factors affects capital budgeting techniques like scenario analysis, sensitivity analysis, and Monte Carlo simulations are used to model different risks. So, risk refers to the variability in expected outcome due to unpredictable factors such as market demand or operational challenges. So, uncertainty makes it harder to predict future performance. So, companies often evaluate risk through mugamit sila ng sensitivity or scenario analysis. So, dili ma-compare, lisod i-compare ang actual result ana o sa expected outcomes tungod sa kanang dili masabtan sa panahon ba. So, example ani kanang pharmaceutical nga company. So, mag-invest sila para mag-develop og kanang bag-o nga drug. So, dili nila masabtan if kanang approve ba siya, regulatory approval, kanang high competition from other drug, kung ma-approve ba siya sa market. So, walay kasiguraduhan. So, third, cost of capital. The cost of capital, which is required rate of return for the project, influences which projects are viable. Project must yield a return that exceeds the cost of capital. So, the cost of capital is the minimum return a company must earn to cover its financing cost. So, it serves as the discount rate in evaluating NPV. If the project return is lower than the cost of capital, it is rejected. So, example ani manufacturing firm wants to invest in a new machinery, so costing 10 million. So, ang cost of capital ang WACC muna siya ang weighted average cost of capital, muna siya kanang expected nga ilang mabayaran ba. So, example ani kay panalitan 8%. So, ang expected return nila sa kanang project mag-generate siya og kanang 10% mo na expected return. So, then kung ang outcome gani ang expected return is taas man siya sa kisa sa katong expected nga ma-pay nila sa 8%. So, kanang project kay kanang approve kay tungod mas ni-exceed man siya sa kanang cost of capital, ang IRR. So, the last is economic environment. The broader economic environment, including inflation rates, currency fluctuations, and tax policies can affect the profitability of capital investment. So, example ani kay kanang multinational corporation, na sila plan nga mag-build og factory in a foreign country. So, sa inflation pa lang daan. So, like sa ang kanang construction cost mas mutaas pa ang ilang mapagawas bitaw. Then sa currency pa lang dili masabtan if mutaas ba or mo ubos. So, sa kana pa lang daan magaguba na siya sa cash flows. So, tungod na nga mga condition, mag-affect siya. So base no dili na lang idayon ang kanang project or ma-delay. So let's move on to the challenges in capital budgeting. So number 1, estimating cash flows. Projecting future cash flows is challenging due to market uncertainties. So challenge siya ang estimate cash flow. Ang pag projection sa future cash inflows ug outflows mo siya kanang lisod nga ta sa capital budgeting. So challenging siya kay tungod sa economic conditions like inflation, market demand. So mag-affect siya, lisod i-predict ang future cash flow tungod nga na. So next is choosing the appropriate discount rate. Using the wrong rate can lead to incorrect evaluations. So the discount rate in capital budgeting is the rate used to convert future cash flows into their present value. So it reflects the opportunity cost of capital or the required rate of return for an investment. So challenging siya. Why? Estimating the cost of capital. So determining the right cost of capital involves assessing the firm's debt and equity structure. So which can be difficult if the firm is highly leveraged or if the cost of debt is fluctuates and sa market conditions po. So the discount rate may need to be adjusted in response to changing interest rates, inflation, and market conditions. So last is complexity in evaluating risk. Quantifying and mitigating risk in long-term investment can be difficult, especially for innovative or speculative projects. So risk assessment is a vital component of capital budgeting. So evaluating risk involves identifying and quantifying the potential factors that might affect a project. So including operational risk, market risk, and external risk. So however, measuring risk accurately is complex, and companies often face challenges in assessing the level of risk associated with a project. So, kanang challenging siya, like sa unpredictable events. So, like sa kanang natural disasters, political instability, or regulatory changes.
On the risk in capital budgeting. So A is sensitivity analysis. This method involves changing one key variable like cash inflows, cost, discount rate at a time to see how sensitive the NPV or IRR is to changes. So ang sensitivity analysis, so magsuri ni sila kung unsa ka sensitibo ang usa ka project or proyekto sa pagbago lamang sa usa ka salik. So para sa gasto, kita o discount rate. So usaw-usaw naman nila pagbago ang usa ka variable para makita nila ang differences ug ang pagbago sa usa ka kung asa atong tulo, kung unsay mas better, so unsay epekto sa mga resulta para sa net present value or NPV o internal rate of return or IRR. So ang scenario analysis evaluates the project under different scenarios such as best case, worst case, and most likely case. So ang scenario analysis, so ilang ipangtanong sa proyekto or project sa laylay nga sitwasyon para sa pinakanindot nga kalagayan or pinakanindot nga kayong nindot nga best case or pinakabati nga kalagayan or worst case, ang pinakalabaw ang most likely case. So makatabang ni para ilang mapaghandaan or sa Bisaya kay ilang mapanghandaman ang mga dili nila sigurado or wala ba sigurado nga sitwasyon para sa future. So ang Monte Carlo simulation, so mogamit sila computer simulation para ilang ununaan or ilang tag-anan ang mga bisag unsa nga mahitabo or posibleng mahitabo sa resulta sa ilang proyekto or ilang project sa pamagitan lang sa paggamit og random nga mga variable. So ang conclusion kay ang capital budgeting kay malaga or importante sa proseso sa pamamala sa pampangwarta o sa usa ka negosyo. So makatabang ni para makahimo or magahuna-huna og nindot nga desisyon para sa mga pangdugayay nga project or proyekto. So sa pamagitan sa paggamit sa pamaraan sa tulad ng NPV or IRR or payback period, so mas imong maiwasan or imong malikayan ang mga dili maayo nga mga pangitabo. So magamit ni sakto og makuha nimo og makuha nimo ang tuloy-tuloy nga pagtaas sa imong